everybody, it's Miss Monet and Lizzie, and today we'll be reading from A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. This is the first book in a fantasy series. It's one of my favorite, and it's the Earthsea series. This book was written a couple decades ago. It's a fantasy sci-fi book. And there's a lot of adventures and magical creatures, and it's a really fun book, so I definitely recommend checking this out. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. Chapter 1. Warriors in the Mist. The island of Gaunt, a single mountain that lifts its peak a mile above the storm-racked northeast sea, is a land famous for wizards. From the towns in its high valleys and the ports on its dark, narrow bays, many a Gauntishman has gone forth to serve the lords of the archipelago in their cities as wizard or mage, or looking for adventure to wander working magic from isle to isle of all Earthsea. Of these, some say the greatest, and surely the greatest voyager, was the man called Sparrowhawk, who in his day both became Dragon Lord and Archmage. His life is told of in the Deed of Ged, and in many songs, but this is a tale of the time before his fame, before the songs were made. He was born in a lonely village called 10 Alders, high on the mountain at the head of the northward vale. Below the village, the pastures and plowlands of the vale swoop downward below level, towards the sea. And other towns lie on the bends of the river Ar. Above the village only forest rises ridge behind ridge to the stone and snow of the heights. The name he bore as a child, Dunny, was given him by his mother, and that and his life were all she could give him, for she died before he was a year old. His father, the bronzesmith of the village, was a grim, unspeaking man, and since Dunny's 6 brothers were older than he by many years, and went one by one from home to farm, the land, or sail the sea, or work as smith in other towns of the northward vale, there was no one to bring the child up in tenderness. He grew wild, a thriving weed, a tall, quick boy, loud and proud and full of temper. With the few other children of the village, he herded goats on the steep meadows above the river springs, and when he was strong enough to push and pull the long bellow sleeves, his father made him work as smith's boy, at a high cost in blows and whippings. There was not much work to be got out of Dooney. He was always off and away, roaming deep in the forest, swimming in the pools of the river Ar, that, like all Gauntish rivers, runs very quick and cold, or climbing by cliff and scarp to the heights above the forest, from which he could see the sea, that broad northern ocean where, past Paragal, no islands are. A sister of his dead mother lived in the village. She had done what was needed for him as a baby, but she had business of her own, and once he could look after himself at all, she paid no more heed to him. But one day when the boy was 7 years old, untaught and knowing nothing of the arts and powers that are in the world, he heard his aunt crying out words to a goat which had jumped up onto the thatch of a hut and would not come down. But it came jumping when she cried a certain rhyme to it. Next day, herding the long-haired goats on the meadows of Highfall, Dooney shouted to them the words he had heard, not knowing their use or meaning or what kind of words they were. Northhaek, Malman, Hookhain, Mirthhan. He yelled the rhyme aloud, and the goats came to him. They came very quickly, all of them together, not making any sound. They looked at him out of the dark slot in their yellow eyes. Dooney laughed and shouted it again. The rhyme that gave him power over the goats. They came closer, crowding and pushing round him. All at once he felt afraid of their thick, rigid horns and their strange eyes and their strange silence. He tried to get free of them and to run away. The goats ran with him, keeping in a knot around him, and so they came charging down into the village at last, all the goats going huddled together as if a rope were pulled tightly round them, and the boy in the midst of them weeping and bellowing. Villagers ran from their houses to swear at the goats and laugh at the boy. Among them came the boy's aunt, who did not laugh. She said a word to the goats, and the beasts began to bleat and browse in wonder, freed from the spell. "Come with me," she said to Dooney. She took him into her hut where she lived alone. She let no child enter there usually, and the children feared the place. It was low and dusky, windowless, fragrant with herbs that hung drying from the cross pole of the roof, mint and molly and thyme, yarrow and rushwash and paramal, kingsfoil, clovenfoot, tansy and bay. There his aunt sank cross-legged by the fire pit, and looking sidelong at the boy through the tangles of her black hair, she asked him what he had said to the goats, and if he knew what the rhyme was. When she found that he knew nothing, and yet had spellbound the goats to come to him and follow him, there she saw that he must have in him the makings of power. As her sister's son, he had been nothing to her, but now she looked at him with a new eye. She praised him and told him she might teach him rhymes he would like better, such as the word that makes a snail look out of its shell, or a name that calls a falcon down from the sky. "Ah, teach me that name," he said, being clear over the fright the goats had given him and puffed up with her praise of his cleverness. The witch said to him, "You will not ever tell that word to the other children if I teach it to you." "I promise." She smiled at his ready ignorance. "Well and good, but I will bind your promise. Your tongue will be stilled until I can choose to unbind it, and even then, though you can speak, you will not be able to speak the word I teach you where another person can hear it. We must keep the secrets of our craft." "Good," said the boy, for he had no wish to tell the secret to his playmates, liking to know and do what they knew not and could not. He sat still while his aunt bound back her uncombed hair and knotted the belt of her dress, and again sat cross-legged, throwing handfuls of leaves into the fire pit so that a smoke spread and filled the darkness of the hut. She began to sing. Her voice changed sometimes to low or high, as if another voice sang through her, and the singing went on until the boy did not know if he waked or slept, and all the while the old witch's old black dog that never barked sat by him, with eyes red from the smoke. Then the witch spoke to Dooney in a tongue he did not understand, and made him say with her certain rhythms and words until the enchantment came on him and held him still. "Speak," she said, to test the spell. The boy could not speak, but he laughed. Then his aunt was a little afraid of his strength, for this was as strong a spell as she knew how to weave. She tried not only to gain control of his speech and silence, but to bind him at the same time to her service in the craft of sorcery. Yet even as the spell bound him, he had laughed. She said nothing. So you guys, Lizzie and I were just reading from A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. It is the first book in the Earthsea series, and if you're interested in this, I definitely recommend reading the rest of the series. We'll see you guys later. Bye!